B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East coast to the west, B-boys worldwide. We supposed to be blessed, still a B-boy. From the old to the new.
Welcome, everyone. Season 3 is upon us. That's right, we're back. And to start the season off, we're having a roundtable discussion about one of the most famous and polarizing MCs in hip-hop history. This will be a fun discussion. Today, we're doing top 10 Tupac songs. Yes, the man, the myth, some say legend, Tupac Shakur. Joining me, we got Brad Sadler back again. And as always, Raven Hunter. The three of us are going to carry this load. Top 10 Tupac songs. This should be a fun discussion. So, as always, I will start. And this song appeared on 2 albums. It had originally, 2 releases. The first time I heard it and the first time it was released was an unreleased track B-side to the Keep Your Head Up single. And it wasn't re-released again until after Pac died. I don't have a copy of that single anymore. I know I used to have the tape. But a year or 2 after he died, they put it out on the Are You Still Down album. And that is I Wonder If Heaven Got a Ghetto. And that, the original version, they did something they called the hip-hop mix. It was terrible. I know this song is more famous for, they kind of made it into the song Changes, a lot of the verses. To me, the original, I Wonder If Heaven Got a Ghetto, I love that. And I remember being shocked that it wasn't like on the Strictly 4 album, because that was the era he recorded it. But it's a version of Pac I love, deep message. The beat is dope with that piano. This one just always spoke to my soul. I Wonder If Heaven Got a Ghetto. And I thought at the same time I could teach some people out there who probably didn't know that it was on the B side to Keep Your Head Up. That's what I got at number 10. Brad, what do you got at number 10?
All right. So as we were talking about a little earlier, I liked Pac pre-Death Row, but I really fell in love with Pac's music when he got on Death Row. And All Eyes on Me, I think, is one of the best hip-hop albums of all time. Definitely 100% the best double hip-hop album of all time, in my opinion. So, as I was saying before, a couple of my true favorite songs are on side 1, and we'll talk about those later. But as a perfect non-skippable album, or what I mean, it's as long as an album, side 2 of or disc 2 of All Eyes on Me, there's not a skippable track in there. I love all of them. Tupac and Dr. Dre didn't collaborate on much, but that first track, Can't See Me with George Clinton, it just sounds so good. I love it. And whenever I put that on, I know I've got 45 minutes to an hour of just awesome tunes coming my way. So Can't See Me from the first song, second disc of All Eyes on Me.
Imagine if Dre wouldn't have fell out with Death Row and he could have produced a whole album or something like that. Although there's other good DJ Quick, I know, did at least 1 or 2. Yep. So there's other quality producers. All right, Raven, what do you got at number 10?
10. One of my favorite rap songs especially from Pac, is Dear Mama. So I had to get it on my list. It's such a just iconic and classic song from the Me Against the World album, 95. I had to make the list, but I didn't want to be stereotypical and put that in the top 3. It deserves probably to be way up over 10. But that whole album, just the Me Against the World album, it was such a raw and unfiltered Pac. There's so much uncertainty in his life during that album that it came through in the music. So I said a couple times on this podcast, I'm pretty sure that's definitely my favorite Pac album. And Dear Mama's just, the message, everybody got a mama, so.
Right. And it's not my favorite Pac album, but I think it may be his best. Me Against the World. There's so much emotion, and it's such a deep album, and we never got that version before or after. I mean, it was just a snapshot of his career, where he was, facing going to jail and quick record. I think he recorded that as right up to when he got
Yeah,
incarcerated for that
like
rape.
it literally was like coming out around the time he was going to jail.
Right, right. So
Yeah, he was in jail when it was released, and I think up to
Yeah.
that point, that sonically was his best album too, as far as like the quality of the musically of the songs as well too. I think that's a really great album. I didn't pick any songs off of it, and actually, I danced to my mom with my mom for the wedding song for my mom to Dear Mama. So I wanted to pick it, but there, I mean, there's just I was telling Chris earlier, there's just I had to be honest with myself, and there was 10 songs I liked better, so I didn't pick it. So I'm
I,
glad.
I can definitely feel that. And I can agree with your point about All Eyes on Me. It's that iconically one of the best double albums ever recorded, but you're not going to hear much of that on my list because I really like old school pop.
yeah, same with me. But Dear Mama was on my honorable mentions. I mean, there's no doubt it's a classic song. Which brings us to number 9, which isn't probably on anyone else. Well, I know it's not on Brad's list because this is from 1991's Apocalypse Now. But this is just always a personal favorite, the song Violent. I remember when this tape dropped thinking, oh, that was the guy on the Digital Underground song, same song. And that's why I bought the tape because I was all about Digital Underground. Sex Packets was huge. This is 91. So I bought the Pac album. That's all I knew him as. I mean, it's, there's kids bumping Tupac today that weren't even alive at the same time he was alive. So it's weird to think there was a time where no one knew who he was really, right? But the song Violent is great storytelling track. As people know, I love the storytelling element in hip hop. This is 6 minutes long. This crazy story, he ends up shooting a cop and all this crazy shit happens, but it's a really haunting beat. And I feel like whenever that song is playing, the beat just makes you move closer to hear every word, like someone telling a scary story, but in a quiet voice. But these early years of Pac are definitely my favorite. He was raw, he was revolutionary, deep lyrics. I definitely miss this later on. So I had Violent as number 9. What do you got, Brad, at number 9?
I'll say mine in 1 second. I want to say I think interestingly, at least my experience with getting to know Pac, before I actually liked his music, I'd heard about him so many times. So then when songs started hitting the radio, I was like, oh, that's the guy I heard about in the news that like shot at the police officer. Like, so for Pac, it was like he was in the news a lot, but he didn't in my world, he didn't have a whole lot of like music. But then as like I Get Around and Keep Your Head Up, I would buy those singles and I'd be like, oh, I like this guy and he's kind of in the news. So you kind of like it was weird. Like he was famous, but he didn't have the music to like like he had music. I understand you guys like that early Pac, but he didn't have all the hit singles that went with as much notoriety as his name was getting in the media at the time. That was my experience with him. Number 9, I picked All Eyes on Me. It's on the second disc. That beat is just incredible. It sounds good. And also, I think right around that time, Nas dropped a song with that same beat or like a similar beat.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot.
Street
What
Dreams or something. Street Dreams, I
was
think
it,
it's
the
called.
Street Dream
Yeah.
song? That
Yeah.
Yep.
same sample, right?
Yeah, and Pac got so mad about that. And I loved listening to Pac talk. He was super smart, incredibly smart, but he was so passionate. And it made him so mad that Nas, made that song and used that same beat. But that beat is incredible. And both those songs are probably top, 20 hip hop songs for me. I would include them both in a list. So All Eyes on Me.
It is a great sample, and you're right. Although when I hear it, I think of the Pac song first, and I've probably listened to the Nas song more. So I don't know why that is, but that's a great sample. Raven, what do you got at number 9?
I went with 1993 strictly for my Five Deadly Venoms with Tretch,
Um,
Apache, and Live Squad. It's such a hard fucking song. There was no way I couldn't put it on here. I love Tretch anyway. I love Naughty and all them. So it was fucking great to hear them together anytime. I could hear those two together anyway. So
Yeah, that was an honorable mention. Tretch and Pac were, close. And
mm.
shameless plug for those who haven't all listened to my back interviews. I interview Tretch's brother, Diesel from Rotten Rascals, and he got some Pac stories in there. But Tretch, one of the most, it's weird to say underrated because he sold millions of albums with hip hop anthems, but as a lyricist, totally ahead
Oh,
of his
definitely.
time. Totally ahead of his time. I love Tretch. And I think Apache's on Five Deadly Venoms, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's Stretch Apache and the Live Squad.
Right. Apache's another one who doesn't get remembered enough in hip hop.
I don't know like anybody else except for maybe y'all that know who Apache is.
Oh, my
So
Gangster Bitch was huge in my world. Damn. Yeah.
now around here, I don't think anybody knew who Apache was.
He only had one album and he appeared like on Naughty
Yeah.
and Pac. But we are at number 8, and this one's for you, Brad. This is going to be my one death row pick. 1996 is All Eyes on Me. Obviously, it's an infamous, huge album. And the one death row song that got my love was Life Goes On. Now, although I think Suge killed Tupac's creativity and was his downfall not only as an artist, but his life, Pac doesn't sign with Suge, doesn't try to live this extra hard life. He might be a 50-year-old MC today. We'll never know. But this track reminds me of classic Tupac. He was still there, and he shined through on songs like this and Mad at You and a couple other ones. But it was hard to see that old Pac in 96. But on Life Goes On, it does. The third verse, Enough, What to Do at His Funeral, is just classic verse. That third verse is so classic. Great production by Johnny J. Yeah, my only other note is talk about how I think signing with Death Row was terrible. And I kind of did that. But Life Goes On is great. What a great beat. What a great. So it had to make my list because that's one of my favorite On the Real songs. Brad, what do you got at number 8 off of All Eyes on Me?
Not off All Eyes on Me, but I'll say the only problem I have with that is you put that song too low. So it'll come up later for me. Okay, so I'm in life in general, I'm a sucker for ballads. Like one of the things I liked was early on Pac was Keep Your Head Up. I like Life Goes On. But I picked off Machiavelli Crazy. I love that song. So really good ballad. And like when that came out, by that time I was at that point in my life, like mid 90s. I'd say now, like I've said before, like Scarface is probably my favorite rapper, and that's probably because he continued to make music. And after a while I like played out Pac's music. There was like unreleased stuff that was coming
Yeah.
out, but it wasn't good stuff. But mid 90s Pac was everything to me. He was the GOAT. Like he was my favorite. And Crazy, just like I just like to listen to that song, and just kind of made me feel wistful and sad. Like the whole beat's just cool. And the whole story about the other guy who raps on it, like I think he was just hanging out at the studio or something, and Pac was like, "You got a verse?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got a verse," and like comes up and just whips out a verse and didn't even know he was going to be on that track. Like I can read a story about that. I'm probably not describing it perfectly right,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something badass, right? Badass is on that track. And
Yeah.
It's like that. And I remember like maybe they interviewed him and he was like, that's how it was in the studio. Like everyone knew you had to have lyrics ready, and Pac was like, "You're up." And if you were like, "I don't got nothing," then you just moved on because he was going to finish that song because he had that fire. Like he knew. I think he knew his time was short, and he just wanted to get that music out and get it going. So if he wanted someone else in, you were up. You put a great verse on. He kept it, and the song was done. And that badass verse is actually really fucking good. His voice just kind of really mixes with that track really well.
But it's amazing how much he recorded. He was only 25, which now in my life, he was still basically a kid, right? And it's
Right.
amazing the work he put in. And shit, for some of those years, he was in jails, most of those years he was still a kid, not even recording. It's amazing what he recorded from 91 to 96. That's only 5 years to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs and good songs too. So if we would get a 50-year-old Pac, I mean, he'd be on album number 75 now or something. Number 8, we are at Raven. What do you got?
Another one of my favorite Pac albums is actually like his group album, 94 Thug Life Volume 1. Always fucking loved. I like every song on that album. I love Big Psych and everybody on that album. It just meshed perfectly well. But I went with Cradle to the Grave, just because the beat, it's just one of those fucking beats that I could still do something with today if somebody produced that for me. I love that song. So Cradle to the Grave is like the first song I think I heard from Thug Life and hooked me in.
That is a great album. And it's one of those examples of short
Yeah,
quality over quantity. I think there's only like 10 songs on that.
I think so.
Well, that's a great pick because number 7, I'm going to 1994's Thug Life album. And similar to Life Goes On, this song is kind of the same vibe. Pour Out a Little Liquor. Just a classic song. To me, it's a classic hip hop song. A great beat and production again by Johnny J, who did Life Goes On. He's great at making these type of vibes and beats. Again, the version of Pac I love, the deep meaning. I think some people kind of forget about this Thug Life album. I just could not have Pour Out a Little Liquor on my list. When I think of Tupac, there's a handful of songs that come in my head, and Pour Out a Little Liquor is one of those handful of songs. So it had to make it. Number 7, Pour Out a Little Liquor. Brad, what do you got at 7?
So I'm gonna stick with the Thug Life album. And I wonder, maybe you guys can answer this as we move on. How did you guys know or find out about the Thug Life album? So for me, it was definitely after I had really got into Tupac. And I remember like just walking into like a Circuit City. I think it was Circuit City, and they had like a big tape bin. And I pulled out this tape that said Thug Life on it. And I was like, well, this has got to be something to do with Tupac, right? Because, Thug Life is his thing. I had no fucking idea that it had been released. It'd come out. I mean, because back then, internet was just like, there wasn't like, I could just look up now Mo Preem Shakur to make sure I was right what I was talking about. It wasn't there. So I just picked up this tape and I put this fucking tape in and I was like, wait a second, this isn't Death Row Tupac, but this fucking sounds like Death Row Tupac. This is amazing. And All Eyes on Me, the number 2 album for me is Thug Life. And again, kind of ballady, How Long Will They Mourn Me? I found this song, I'm sure after Tupac, or this album after Tupac died. It's got Nate Dogg on it. Just a cool fucking song. It's just so catchy. So I picked that as number 7.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but so back in those days, I got every issue of the Source, of rap pages, all these rap. So I was always up on what was coming out. So I probably got it right as it dropped. I don't remember the experience of buying Thug Life. It's too bad we never got a volume 2 of that, because that was a great,
For real.
great album. And that's a good one that you put on. Another one that comes to mind is Bury Me a G. What a great album. So Raven, what do you got at number 7?
I have How Long Will They Mourn Me at number 7. I stuck with Thug Life. Same reason. It's just such a real fucking song, and it's Pac. Like it feels like the Me Against the World 2, All Eyes on Me transitioning Pac, and it's from '94, so it came out before either one of them. But
Right.
it's just such a good grounded album, and I think I learned about Thug Life because my little brother was always on the box and MTV Raps and shit, and one of those like either How Long Will They Mourn Me or Pour Out a Liquor video came on, and then we ran to Sam Goody the next day and found the tape. So
Right. All right. So we are at number 6, and we are for the first time going to what is my personal favorite. And I realize it's probably not his best, but it's the one that means the most to me. 1993. I was still in high school doing dumb shit. The album is Strictly 4, and the song, I love albums that open with a hype song. Holler If You Hear Me. The second
Mm.
this beat drops, it just gives me hype. Perfect way to start an album. This is revolutionary Pac in his prime. This version of Pac, this is a perfect version of that type of Pac. So many deep things to say, and gritty, raw. I think of the black and white video that had a really good story. If people haven't seen it, go check it out. It's just a gritty sound. It's not a polished sounding song, but it just gives me hype. Holler If You Hear Me. Another one that had to make my list. Number 6, Brad, what do you got?
All right. So number 6 is From All Eyes on Me, Disc 1, Life Goes On. Again, I'm a sucker for a ballad. What an incredible ballad. I agree with you. The third verse about how his funeral is going to be. My wife used, when she was in school getting her master's, because I introduced her to Tupac, because we started dating in 96, and that was like all I could do was listen to Tupac. Somehow she used that song and something she was writing. So she also knows all the words to that song, and we'll like rap that song together whenever it comes on. So absolutely awesome pick. I honestly didn't think anyone else would pick that song in their top 10. So it's very cool that you did.
Well, what did you put at number 6, Raven?
Rebel of the Underground from 91 to Apocalypse
Mm.
Now. Just love the beat. I love that whole album is very unpolished and raw
Very.
sounding, and I like that. Like that's a gritty Pac, and I like the gritty Pac too. I don't love the overly produced Death Row Pac just because it's too polished for my taste in Pac. But yeah, I think Rebel of the Underground is just another hard ass song, and I love hard ass songs. So.
Great pick. Which brings us to number 5. And I'm going with 1995's Me Against the World, which is such a unique snapshot of Pac, like we've said. But I'm going with the song If I Die Tonight. Again, another opening song that sets the mood. Before I went back through his catalog, I never would have thought this song would have made a top 10 list to me. But once I listened to it again, it's everything I love about Pac. And he even displays some really dope wordplay, lyricism on this track, probably his best ever, where he's just rhyming words with the same letter. For Pac, this is lyrical. This is the most lyrical I think I ever heard Pac. Amazing beat by the absolute legend Easy Mo B, who does not get enough credit for the hip hop he produced in the 90s. Easy Mo B had his hands in so many hit rappers. Great vibe. Number 5, Brad, what do you got?
Going back to 1994's Thug Life, Straight Ballin'. Now that's a song that hypes me up. I For a long time when I used to run marathons, half marathons, 5K, I always had that song and on my mixtape. And when that would kick in, I just would kick it into another gear. Like that song gets me hyped up. I love that song.
It's great that Thug Life is getting this much because I kind of think people forget about it in some ways. It kind of gets overshadowed. So it's good it's getting talked about. Raven, what do you got at number 5?
Life Goes On from 96. I love that song. Same reasons you guys have already covered that. So not much more for me to say. Verse 3 is a killer. Like I just love that song.
All right, then we'll get right to number 4. I'm going back to 93's Strictly for My album. And similar to Life Goes On, similar to Pour Out a Little Liquor, Keep Your Head Up. Actually, when I hear Tupac, this is the first song that goes into my mind every time is Keep Your Head Up. This is an amazing, what I call on the real song with deep lyrics. It has an amazing sample that fits the vibe perfectly. It's got an iconic video I used to watch nonstop on UMTV Raps in the Box. This song literally, not literally, because that wouldn't make sense, but this song hits me in my soul. And 30 years later, literally 30 years later, it still holds up. It's just genius. It's hard for people to make music that timeless. Keep Your Head Up is just amazing. So that's my number 4. Brad, what do you got at 4?
Going to the Machiavelli album. So, I think everyone's kind of talked about how polished the sound was on All Eyes on Me, which for me, I like, in some instances, I love raw and gritty, but I also really like polished kind of pop music. And I feel like there's a lot of like good melody pop music on Oz Me. But he goes back. I mean, I think y'all haven't picked anything off Machiavelli, but that's a pretty raw album. I think that's kind of goes back. And like I saw an interview with Snoop Dogg where he was like, he's like, yeah, we had All Eyes on Me. Tupac had that like polished formula, but then when he put out Machiavelli, and I don't know if it's, again, not as polished because he died before he finished it, but it's kind of a raw album. And Hail Mary that's fucking awesome song. Like the first line, like revenge is the sweetest joy, and actually getting pussy is, I mean, that's iconic lyrics. Like
Yeah.
that song is fucking great. So that's my number four.
People still quote that line to this day.
Yeah.
That's a
Yep.
timeless line in hip hop. So
It is. It is. To be honest, so I remember when Machiavelli came out, going and buying it right away and being completely disappointed. I thought I didn't like it. I mean, I know I like To Live and Die in LA because it kind of has a vibe of, things I like. And yeah, Hail Mary was good. And, I think Toss It Up might have been the single, but I remember being so disappointed in that album. But when I re-listened to it back, years later, it's fared better than it did originally.
Bomb First is probably my favorite song on there.
That's a
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That's on my honorable mentions. Bomb First
Yeah.
made my honorables.
And did you guys always hear the rumor that in the intro to Machiavelli, the guy saying "Suge shot him"?
Oh
Did
yeah,
you?
I heard that.
Yeah, it was like you got to listen. The guy's telling you that Suge really shot him.
And then Suge released the album, I guess.
Right, right. All right, we are on four yet. Raven, what is your number four?
I'm gonna go back to 1991's Tupacalypse Now with Trapped. Something about Trapped has always hit me. I love that song. The ghetto got me trapped. I don't know. It's just I don't know what else to say. It's Pac, and most of his songs, people know these songs. Like Trapped when you hear that beat come on. If you're a fan of Pac, what else can I really say? That's just a deep song. I love that shit.
It was on my honorable mentions, so I got it crossed off. Which brings us to number three. I would be surprised, although I say that all the time, and then Raven will have the same song as me. But this song I feel like this song was made for me when I listened to it. So I'm going to 95's Me Against the World, and I'm going with the song Old School. This song I feel was made for me. I grew up on mid 80s hip hop, all the names he's dropping, the love he has, which is funny, he's name dropping pretty much all New York artists. And then a year later, he'd be all West Side and fuck New York. But it's like a perfect love letter to early hip hop. And all the names he's dropping, all the things he's talking about, it's like I did that at that same time. It's like he made my childhood into a song, is how I always felt when I listened to Old School. I get so nostalgic listening to it. Like I want to just, I can close my eyes and just transport myself back to, 1987 or whatever. So the chorus has a scratch hooked from Brand Nubian's song Dedication that I wouldn't be here today if the Old School didn't pave the way. That's blended in perfectly. The beat fits the vibe perfectly. I just love this song so much. I put right here, it almost brings a tear to my eye. I'm not crying, just got something in my eye. But Old School, damn, hits me right in the heart. Number three, Brad, what do you got?
All right. Well, I'm going to go completely in the opposite direction. So, in my opinion, like when an artist is in the zone, not only do they make a fucking awesome album, but then they put out an EP or something with a bunch of extra songs that they had so much good shit that they couldn't even fit it all on an album. But for Pac, it couldn't fit it all on a double album. And they had California Love, and then somehow they made California Love better. And they had How Do You Want It, which was pretty much the same. And then they had the diss song Hit 'Em Up, which is fucking fire, pure vitriol. And when I am pissed off, when I want to get amped up more than anything, I throw that on there. And, I debate back and forth in my own mind, like, is No Vaseline or Hit 'em Up the better diss song of all time? And there are days when I'm like, fuck, it's Hit 'em Up. And there are other days when I'm like, it's No Vaseline. Either way, one of the best diss songs of all time. To me, and it took me so long to like get into New York artists because I was like, Pac destroyed all those dudes on that song. Like, and the great thing is he's so mad. He's like, I'm done. He's like, I'm not even gonna talk anymore. And I'm gonna let, all my other guys ride on you. And then he lets people do like one verse, and then he's back and he's going and he's talking, he's not even rapping. But it just fucking fits in. And he's like, you're like, but you said you weren't coming back, and here you are screaming into the microphone. Man, that song, like just talking about it gets me fired up. Fuck yeah, hit him up.
No, you explained it perfectly, because you can definitely tell he wasn't pretending to be angry. I mean,
No, he
you
was
can
pissed.
you can feel that in your fucking bones, the anger and venom he fucking felt. What a great fucking diss song. No doubt. I probably will always put No Vaseline ahead of it, but I would be lying if I didn't say that was a top 3 to 5 hip hop diss song. I'd have to think about it. Hit 'em Up was on my honorable mentions as well. Raven, what's your number 3?
Number three, back to 95's Me Against the World. I went with Temptations because I just always really love that beat. I don't remember if it's the Isley Brothers or who was sampled in that song, but I really love Temptations beat. And Pac's voice is very raw in that song, and it's just I don't know. I remember listening to it like, man, this sounds nothing like Dear Mama, but it makes sense that it belongs on the same album with Dear Mama. You know what I mean? It was just another one a shift of Pac's emotions throughout that album. And Old School made my honorable mentions, but honestly, Thug Life and Me Against the World, if I could have just had like 23 top 10, top 23 Pac songs, it would have
All
just
right.
been those two albums. Like those are, Thug Life and Me Against the World are definitely my favorite works from Pac. And Temptations have that haunting, I don't know, just real sound to it.
Top 2. And my number 2 is Tupac's best song. It's just not my favorite song. My favorite song, we could have 50 guests tonight and no one would have my number 1, even on their top 10. But that's not up. We're at number 2. I think this is Pac at his finest. And we're going back to the beginning, 1991's Tupacalypse Now. Everyone out there know what I'm going to say. Brenda's Got a Baby. Hands down, like I said, his best song. An amazing story that keeps you hanging on every word. Every single word you're following. It's like he paints this perfect picture of this, kid, Brenda, pregnant from her cousin. It's got a haunting beat, but the singing fits the vibe perfectly, I always thought. And another iconic black and white video. I can picture almost every scene from this video. And this was actually a promo put out before Tupacalypse Now. Now, I didn't see the promo until after Tupacalypse Now, but Brenda's Got a Baby was actually the first solo Tupac thing ever released. My last thing I wrote down is there's way too many Brendas out there. Another song that hits my soul. I mean, talk about it goes beyond rap and beyond. He really was a poet, and this song alone proves it, right? So Brenda's Got a Baby. She's barely got a brain. Brad, what do you got at number 2?
All right. You thought no one would pick anything post his demise, maybe an unfinished track. And I think I don't know if he finished this track before he died or not, but Staring Through My Rear View
Great
off
song.
Gridlock soundtrack with that fucking awesome Phil Collins "It's in the Air Tonight" sample. And honestly, again, like I'm a sucker for a ballad. It's kind of a ballad hip hop song. Pac's voice is just perfect. Another one of those, like, to me, just made me miss him so much. Like, it just kind of captured some of the sadness I felt after he died. And I had to put it in my top 2.
I don't know the answer, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was already slated for that soundtrack because, Pac was in the movie. So that could have been made for that soundtrack. Number 2, Raven, what do you got?
1996, Death Row Greatest Hits, Tupac and the Outlaws, Hit 'Em Up. Um, that fucking song is scorching. Like, that and No Vaseline is always gonna fight for the first spot for me. My love for Ice Cube is usually gonna overtake my love for Tupac. I didn't really pick sides during their whole beef. I listened to a little bit of Biggie and a little bit of Pac. But I always kind of liked Pac's voice more, so I was always a little more drawn. And just when he came out with Hit 'Em Up, like to this day, anytime somebody says, well, like, first of all, I'm just like, fuck your bitch and the click you playing. Like, and it
Right.
pisses my fiance off so much because she's trying to argue with me, and I just bust out the entire first verse of Hit 'Em Up because that fucking song, you don't forget that beat. You don't forget how angry Pac was. The Outlaws probably never even met any of Biggie or any of them. They just
Sure
like fuck
not.
them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but even the Outlaws went off on that song. And I was never a huge fan of the Pac and Outlaws because I loved the Pac and Thug Life so much. But Hit 'Em Up is just, fuck your bitch.
We're to number one. And my favorite Tupac song, and I'll read my notes, but I know right away without reading my notes is I'm not even sure why this is my favorite Tupac song. But since I heard it, it always was and it always will be, since I'm thinking he's not recording anything new anytime soon. But my favorite Tupac Shakur song is not even on a Tupac Shakur album. It's not on a Thug Life album. 1995's The Show soundtrack, My Block. This just every different element I love of Tupac, storytelling, deep meaning, um, the hooks where he's talking to the different people on the block are so well done. Another great beat by Easy Mo Bee. It's like Pac's taking you on a tour of an inner city block, and he paints such a perfect picture. I feel like I'm watching a documentary on an inner city neighborhood, and you're meeting all these characters who live on that inner city block. I know after he died, they did a remix to it and tried to release it. That remix is trash. It shouldn't even be legal to release that. I don't know why it would be illegal. But this song also makes me think of summer. It's just the vibe. I really don't know what else to say, but it's a melting pot of all the elements of Tupac I love. My Block, I could listen to it 10 times in a row and still love it as much as I did every other time. So that's my number one. Brad, what's your number one?
Going back to my favorite Tupac album, first disc. I doubt anyone's going to pick this song, and I'll caveat this by saying that I guess maybe I wasn't. I mean, I came to hip hop late, like right. I got into it in '92 with the Chronic. So for me, it was like you hear something, you listen to something, and then you're like, okay, I like that rapper on this song. And the great thing about Eliza Me, yes, it was really polished, but he had a lot of underground rappers or people I'd never heard of on that album. Like the first time I heard E40 was on that album. First time I heard Rappin' Forte, which is getting to my song, Only God Can Judge Me, which to me was the best. Like Rappin' Forte's verse and Tupac and Only God Can Judge Me was like the pinnacle of just perfect sound. Like that song just sounds so fucking good to me. So the first thing I did, well, the first thing, but whenever I figured out that I really liked that verse, I went out and bought Rappin' Forte's albums, and then I went and bought other West Coast rappers, and just kind of then dove around and found all these sounds, and it all stemmed from my love of All Eyes on Me and that specific track, Only God Can Judge Me. And I like just the whole message of it, like, I guess basically, he's doing what he wants to do. Don't fucking judge him. Just leave him alone. I just like that, like, fuck you. I'm gonna do what I want to do attitude, and then Rappin' Forte's verse on there was incredible.
That's a good point you bring up. Is it was good how the rappers that he featured I had known, but like you said, a more mainstream audience didn't know the Richie Riches and the Drew Downs. And it's great that when Pac got to this higher level of notoriety, he put these other people on. So people like you who didn't know who Raven Forte was could go by like the Off Parole album and be like, damn, this guy's amazing. Shout out to Off Parole. I love that album. But
Incredible album.
it's so
Fantastic.
I love that he put, those artists he knew from the Bay before he got to Death Row and gave him some love. And they're still probably getting royalty checks to this day from being on that album. So, I mean, he took care of them for life in some ways. All right, Raven, number one. What do you got?
Man, number one was hard for me. I had to leave so much off, the holler if you hear me's and to keep your head ups. But when I think about like what is my all-time favorite Pac song, it's on the 1994 Above the Rim soundtrack. It's Pain with Stretch.
Oh, yes, I'm so glad someone picked that.
I love Pain. That beat has just I would rap over that beat today if I could find it legally. And it's fucked up because 3 times I bought this fucking single on vinyl that's had fucking Regulate on it instead of Pain.
I got the one with Pain on it.
That's
Dude,
a
you
harder
actually
one to
have that
find,
one?
right?
I got it. I went through.
I cannot fucking get it.
I bought so many, and I finally found one. I messaged the guy. I was like, "You got to play it, and make sure it's Pain, because they're 90% of them that don't have that song." But was that actually on the soundtrack, or it was like on a single or a cassette tape?
It was the cassette tape had a bonus track that no other format had, and it was Pain.
Yes, and it was also on the CD. Just like All Eyes on Me, there was like an EP there. Well, yeah, that vinyl single also came as a CD single with Pain.
Yeah, like the More Of or whatever.
Yes,
soundtrack. But yeah, Pain. I love the beat. I love Pac's voice and the way he raps in that song. That's always going to be like my favorite song from Pac.
That hurt me not putting that song in my top 10. And I was like, I know you always do your tracks that the runners up, whatever. I was gonna like, hey, I want to throw out a runner up of Pain. So I'm so glad someone picked it. Awesome.
I completely forgot about that song, but you're right. What a great song. What a great song. I completely forgot about it. So we did the top 10. As you alluded to, here are my honorable mentions. A lot of these songs I'm surprised didn't make the list. So ones no one brought up was Young Black Male from Apocalypse Now, If My Homies Call. My number 11 would be the song Lunatic off of Apocalypse Now. I Gotta Show Love to the song Last Words with Ice Cube and Ice-T. So Many Tears. I couldn't believe no one picked I Get Around. Classic Tupac. Fuck the World, which I believe people online can correct me, but I believe this is the last song he ever did with Shock G, the person who put him on. I believe that's last time they worked together. Ambitious of a Rider, mostly for the beat, makes me want to go kill someone, and To Live and Die in LA. Those were the ones that were my honorable mentions. And I wanted to ask everyone a question. So Tupac's looked upon as one of the best ever. Tupac doesn't go to the Tyson fight, doesn't die. He's still alive today. What would his legacy be? I don't think he'd be looked at as one of the best alive, because there's almost a mystique to him. It became after his death, he became like I don't even know how to explain it. But if he just went on, did a couple more albums, made some halfway okay movies like Gridlocked, how would Tupac be looked upon as?
I mean, from my perspective, like before he died, he was my favorite rapper, and that was I like all those albums that you guys like, but I don't know. All Eyes on Me, man, that was just, there was nothing better. So I mean, I think at least he goes down as having he goes down as having some. I mean, there was a time, right, when he was on the cover of every magazine. It wasn't just like hip hop magazines anymore. The next person to have done that, right, was maybe like Kanye West after Tupac, where you not only have fame in music, but you have fame. This was before he died, right? I mean, there were so many things with the getting shot and surviving, the rape charges, the shooting at the police officers. I mean, I still think he goes down as like a huge legacy. Yes, I think his death added to it in the fact that people, like he alluded to in the whole Machiavelli album, like faking his death and moving on. And I think a lot of people, myself included, wanted to believe that he just, you know, slipped out. He didn't really die. There's no way Pac could get shot and die because he already survived, you know, 5 bullet holes. So I think that did add that mystique part, but no way. I mean, 95, 90, like, and you can also go, like, if you go and look at, like they'll rank like the best rappers for certain years, right? And like 95, 96, Tupac is always ranked as like up there. So I think he always captures a period of time and a legacy of being larger than his music and having an album or some music to back it up, and goes down as an all-time great. I don't think much changes other than maybe I think he had the potential to fall off on his releasing it. Like, I don't think the music would have continued to be as good. I still think if he had lived, Cube and Scarface put out better music over time. But no, I think he still has a great legacy.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to agree. Like, Brenda's Got a Baby sparked some noise, and then you went to like I Get Around and Keep Your Head Up, and that sparked buzz. And then you start getting into like Me Against the World with Dear Mama, where Pac was already becoming one of the largest rappers on the fucking planet before he even signed with Suge. Like, that album, Temptations, all those singles blew him up. Like, and then he signed with Suge, and Ambitions of a Rider starts off one of the greatest double albums in history. That fucking beat for that song, you know, everybody knows the drum line and the bass line and everything from Ambitions of a Rider. That's definitely on one of my honorable mentions. But yeah, I also agree that it would have fallen into, I don't want to say like the DMX trap, but as time went on, his music suffered in quality. And I think that he either would have oversaturated the market while he was alive, or just his views on everything may have been askewed or changed the bigger and bigger he got. Because the bigger he got, the more thug he got, the more, you know, Let's Ride and Die with Suge he got. You know what I mean? If he would have funneled all that energy into something else, Above the Rim did great. Juice was a great movie. People love Poetic Justice. You know, I think that Pac definitely would have been cemented. I don't think people would ever call him the greatest of all time, but I think he would still make the lists. You know what I mean?
Like you said, Juice, Above the Rim, he was a good actor. I mean, he was an artist and, you know, more than just rap. But like his character in Bishop, you can't watch that and say he's not a good actor. You believe that he's fucking Bishop. My opinion is kind of similar. I don't think he would be looked upon. You know, what's so weird about his death is I can remember clearly being at my cousin's house and him saying, "Oh, Tupac got shot," and it's like, "Oh, he got shot again. Okay, he'll be fine." And I think I've seen so many interviews with like people in his own camp, like, "Oh, he'll be fine. He just got shot again." That when he died, it didn't seem real, right? Because we're like, "Oh, what?
How many times has he already survived this shit?"
Right.
Like, he checked himself out of the hospital like the same or next day after getting shot like 5 times.
Right.
Like,
no doubt, no matter what the opinion is, Tupac Shakur is one of the biggest names in hip hop history. There's people who know the name but couldn't name a song, you know, and that's when you know you've made it. Again, another great roundtable. Till next time, have a good one. See you guys.
Still a B-boy, from the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East Coast to the West, B-boys worldwide, we supposed to be blessed. Still a B-boy, from the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East Coast to the West, B-boys worldwide, we supposed to be blessed.
Hey yo, I got an itchy tongue, call it a trigger finger, cause it spits raps. Instead of peeling caps, I blow your dome back, so throw that. Whack round my way, sit down and check this style out. Take notes but don't bite and try to eliminate my clout. I'm out for blood, hunting like a predatorial species. You couldn't beat me if you was up early and had your wheat teas. You can't see me, you blind like Stevie to the fact that I'm still a b-boy spitting sharp over this fire track. These new rappers whack, they need to hang it up, put it away. They freshman style wet, and I'm hanging out to dry so they gets no play. Whether it's for a radio, they need to play it low key, cause MCing for them is not the way to go. It's not what you say, but how you deliver it. So if you poetically inclined but can't articulate, it's useless. See, I do this with ease, it's like a natural born talent for me to speak on beats and get this thing straight crack.
Still a b-boy, from the old to the new, still a b-boy. Too bold for the school, still a b-boy. East coast to the west, b-boys worldwide, we supposed to be blessed. Still a b-boy, from the old to the new, still a b-boy. Too bold for the school, still a b-boy. East coast to the west, b-boys worldwide,